Right. Hi, everyone. Hope that you are doing well. My name is Scott Marks. I'm the Director of Operations for the Ohio Provider Resource Association. I'm here to talk a little bit about the Blueprint Committee, some of the recommendations that the Department of Developmental Disabilities has made, and how we are going to develop some feedback around those here at OPRA. So let's go ahead and get into it. So what is the Blueprint Committee? Just going really through the basics here. The Blueprint, it's a DODD-led work group that's charged with making recommendations to Ohio's array of day, vocational, and employment services. This group began to meet in 2019, but was put on hold due to COVID-19 pandemic. After a long time of regrouping and a few false starts, we got back together and subcommittees were formed to make recommendations on several areas of the day array. DODD is planning a multi-year phased-in approach to the implementation and are seeking feedback from system partners, and that's what we're hoping to provide here today. So really quickly, this group got going back in 2019 to do a few different things. One was to come into compliance with some Medicaid and federal requirements that the state felt that maybe we had fallen behind on. But really more importantly, how do we create a sustainable, viable system of adult and vocational services where people have the supports that they need and providers have the ability to provide those services in a sustainable and meaningful way. So really to do that, we looked at the entire day array through this committee, and these subcommittees were formed of areas of focus for recommendation, being work services, non-work services, transportation, quality and governance, finance, and communication and training. So these groups met several times, and out of that work, there were 15 proposals created with varying degrees of development, I would say. Some of the groups were able to meet more than others. For example, I am not sure that the finance subcommittee necessarily had too many full-on proposals. A lot of that work would have to be done as a result of the other proposals to see how those would be financed. So again, varying degrees of development of these proposals, but those 15 proposals were put out months ago, and now the department has put together their phase-in plan. So really just quickly wanted to make sure you all knew how you could go ahead and read the 15 proposals if you have not done so yet, because it can all be found on our committee pages on the OPRA website. So if you go to www.opra.org, and the first thing you want to do is click on the members only resources. After entering your member credentials, you will then be taken to the member resources page where you're going to go ahead and click on the OPRA committees tab. Once you get there, you can get into our committees. Here you see the day array committee, and that's where a lot of this blueprint work lives. So go ahead and click on that view committee forum. And then voila, you will be into the 15 different proposals that we are talking about here today. So in those 15 proposals, there were some that we at OPRA were more involved in the development with than others, and some that are more of a priority and really a position that we really support as a major initiative in this work. So what those are around the simplification and condensation of the career planning services, and we'll talk a little bit about the proposal around that, a rate enhancement for group employment services, as well as a rate enhancement for integrated employment support, which is a waiver-funded job coaching service that would be equal to the OOD rate for the comparable service. Also, really looking at the simplification of the adult day support billing structure, as that being one of the guiding principles in OPRA's strategic plan around simplification leading to better trust for providers, as well as a proposal around the addition of participant-directed transportation. So the department came to us with this plan last week. And after a meeting in April where they presented all of the different proposals to the work group, came back, we met with them and had a conversation about what the implementation would look like and what the different phases of that would be. So a couple of things to note here. Outside of this work, there is work going on to develop a step-style small group community integration service, and that's being developed so it will be ready prior to the expiration of the public health emergency and when the step services through Appendix K would end now. Really importantly, if you are watching this video, we are looking for feedback on these items as soon as possible. The department has requested feedback by May 8th. And with our conference coming up next week, we hope that we could get that feedback from you all as soon as possible. The department's proposal also includes suggestions that were not covered by the subcommittee recommendations, and we'll talk a little bit about those as well. So when we look at the implementation plan that DoDD has put together, they've split the proposal into really 3 areas that are necessary for successful implementation, being what waiver amendment and rule changes are necessary, what training and resources would be necessary, and then really what other items would be necessary to make these changes successful and really make them work. So here is the proposal as it has been presented to us by DoDD, and we're going to go ahead and kind of walk through each step of this pretty high level, but please let me know, shoot me an email or give me a call if you have questions or thoughts on any of these items outside of the feedback that you would like to share. So we're going to go ahead and just start walking right through it. So the first piece of this is really around a request for a proposal to contract with a rate and finance expert to engage with them on all of these potential rate changes that are going to be a part of this work. So we already talked about how enhancements to rates are a big priority for us, especially around some particular services. And this would be a step in that work, is having someone that could come in and help Ohio model those rates. Then we get into the basic employment skills training proposal. So if you are familiar with BEST, this was the vocational habilitation sort of replacement service that DoDD had worked on for several years prior to the pandemic in order to do a few things. Ensure that people in pre-vocational services were not making more than 50% of a minimum wage, carve out people over 50 years old to be able to continue in a pre-vocational service, while also limiting the pre-vocational service to 2 years with extensions for people under 50 years old. So as you see, this is really the first step that they have here after modeling with the rate expert. We would outline those changes and really looking right around that same time to have an implementation of BEST in July 2022. We have major thoughts about this at OPRA and definitely some concerns about the timeline and the implementation of BEST and whether the service really makes sense in a post-pandemic world, but I'll hold those for a little bit. Next, we've got the career planning service, and we talked a little bit about this and what we hope to achieve here. So the proposal around career planning is really to merge the 8 sub-services, which include career planning, career discovery, self-employment launch, and several others, into one service called the employment package. There would be a uniform rate model across all employment package services, and it would be authorized in a way that would then allow flexibility for a provider and a person to move between the employment package services without having to come back for an authorization revision to maybe, let's say, switch from career planning to career discovery. It would all be under that employment package service, allowing flexibility and ease of use of these services. Importantly here, benefits analysis, which was previously a piece of career planning, has been pulled out and will act as its own standalone service, which, as you see, is the next piece of the proposal here. Next is the proposal to modify the adult day support rule with an estimated rule effective date of December 2022. This is another one where the proposal itself has a lot of merit, but we have a lot of questions about the timeline, as this would be a very major change and unsure if December 2022 would be a feasible time to make this happen. But what are we looking at here? So this is what was called the non-work ADS proposal. which breaks down adult day support really into 3 different types of service areas, being center-based, community immersion, and a hybrid service. It also looks to simplify the billing structure to half-day billing as opposed to 15-minute units. And really in that center-based service, an exploration of if it is possible to combo with state plan services, providing more support for people in center-based services who have more complex support needs. This is one where that need for rate modeling is very important. So again, looking at the timelines as they've been laid out here, we have a lot of questions about how feasible this change is to make without the rate modeling completed, which the department has in the proposal is not being completed until 2023. So again, a lot of questions around this, but again, a pretty strong proposal on its merits, but a lot of devils in the details and a lot of questions about the timing of implementation. Next is around the group employment support rule. I don't have a separate slide for this, as what we are really looking at is a pretty significant rate enhancement for group employment support to help people move along the path to employment and help support people in that group employment support in a sustainable and meaningful way. This has been a challenge ever since the rules changed back in 2017 to make group employment work with the rates as we currently have them. And we believe it's very important as we emerge from the pandemic and we try to shore up providers and help people get back towards employment, and especially competitive employment, that we have a viable group employment rule and rate. Additionally, and sort of in combo with that, would be looking at modifying the individual employment supports rule. And there are a lot of different proposals around this. We are currently advocating for that rate to be enhanced to equal the OOD rate, allowing, again, ease of sort of transition between vocational rehab and waiver employment services. So again, important topic for, I know, our Employment Services Committee going back some time, and we really hope to see this happen sooner than later. We're very glad it's included in the first phase of the proposal, but we actually might hope that gets moved up even further ahead. And then lastly would be developing a standard measurement tool and rubric around quality work and non-work and transportation services. So this was a work of the Quality and Governance Subcommittee, which really took a look at this idea of how do we measure and even understand or think about quality in day services, and how do we as a state promote quality? So again, a lot more detail needs to be had here, but certainly an interesting proposal and one that I would really hope for member feedback on. Then our participant-directed transportation service, which would allow people with disabilities to direct their own transportation in ways of things like buying gas cards, buying Uber passes, access to public transportation, whatever it may be, really that other option that people could control and direct and have flexibility around their transportation options, especially when it comes to non-program transportation, things like just going out and accessing the community. Is there a better, more person-centered and participant-directed way to do that? And then finally, for real this time in this first phase, we've got a modification of the employment first rule that would really change the place 4 on the path to being a kind of squishy, I'm not sure about work, to being a more definitive, I'm not interested in working, I am not necessarily on a path to employment at this time. And then you see the beginning of the training and resources that would be needed to implement these. So that is the most detail we've put into that first phase, is really everything in the subsequent phases comes out of that first phase. So when we look at the other items, there are things like multi-agency planning teams, cross-system training, work with mobility in Ohio and the Ohio Department of Transportation. So these are all those kind of other items that need to be brought about to make this really successful transition into these new types of services as they may be implemented. So as we move into FY 2023, you see that this is really just a kind of continuation of the changes as we've said, as the dates that the department has laid out really fall into this fiscal year 23, which is between July 1st of 2022 and June 30th of 2023. So that's where these services would, as far as this timeline goes, be implemented, and the training resources and other items would be added in as well. So really importantly, and I'm very interested in member feedback on this piece, are around where the department sees there are still gaps in the proposal. And that really is around serving the folks with the most intense disabilities, the most complex support needs. And do we have enough in our proposals, and are we doing enough in the state of Ohio to support those people in adult day and vocational supports in a meaningful way that does not, as it says, leave them behind? So some ideas and concepts around this was an interagency agreement with mental health and addiction services to get more supports for those type of needs into our day and vocational services. How we evaluate our current DODD rules to allow nursing to occur across all settings, which has been a very important topic here at OPRA over the last several months. Review the adult day health center service, evaluate the possibility to add it to all 3 waivers as a comprehensive service in an effort to allow for an adult day service that may include the following: therapeutic services, behavior management, medical and psychiatric evaluation. So this is what gets back to that concept of the center-based day service and how we could maybe use that to bring in more state plan services to provide those supports for people who need them in an adult day setting. So there really is a lot of interesting and great possibilities here, but a lot that needs to be worked out on this. And again, where maybe we have a little bit of discomfort with the timelines that DODD has laid out with such big and meaningful changes. And then again, looking at how maybe we could support professional services as discrete adult day array services when someone has exceeded what is available through the state plan. A few more gaps here. Workforce, obviously, this looms large over every single thing that we do, and really talking about any service changes, especially those that maybe lead to smaller group sizes or more individualized supports. Obviously, with the workforce crisis that we are going through now, that really will have huge impact on our ability to implement these pieces successfully. So the action item here is referring over to a workforce task force or work group that we will be a part of as this work moves forward. Really a lot of questions around how we balance the fiscal sustainability and the person-centered quality services that help people attain a meaningful life. That we must build bridges and connections between individuals and families served and all different community providers. And then really, how do we reconfigure for a future that we see as possibly serving many more people in the adult day program with the amount of young people exiting school with disabilities over the next several years. So again, this is really very important, and our fiscal sustainability and our ability to serve those people and serve people in a quality and meaningful way obviously really depends on how we establish our priorities for this piece going forward. And like I said, the finance work group, I believe, is one that did not really meet very thoroughly during the blueprint work group. So major questions and concerns there. The last being performance metrics to support data-driven decisions. And I believe there are some proposals around that, and we can talk more. So tying it all up, I hope you all stuck with me for all of that. I hope it wasn't too in the weeds, but also answered enough questions and led you to enough resources to dig into these proposals yourself to provide some feedback. So here are some of the questions that we have that we would love answered by you all in the membership. The first really is around the BEST service, the basic employment skills training. How does this fit into the implementation? Should it fit into the implementation? Does it really make sense now in the time that we're living in the post-pandemic world, where we are struggling to get people back into services, where the BEST service does put some limits on people's ability to receive that pre-vocational service. Very interested in member feedback on that. We have a lot of concerns about this being the opening, one of the opening pieces of this proposal. Then really looking at the proposal and the pieces as they've been laid out, are the changes correctly sequenced? Have we timed this right? Do we need to move some pieces up, move some pieces back? I feel that some of the larger proposals around the non-work services probably need more time and consideration. And I believe some of the employment supports rate enhancements really should and could be moved up, as that is really just rate work, does not involve a lot of heavy policy work there. But again, really interested in member feedback around the sequencing as it's been laid out here. Also really looking for feedback around this idea of a quality metric system for adult day support, vocational transportation services. This was a focus of the Quality and Governance Subcommittee and a topic that we've discussed at length here at OPRA. But really, what does it look like? How is it implemented? And how is it done in a way that really do drive quality services and doesn't just lead to more administrivia for everyone, are really the key concerns and questions that we would have about any quality metric system as that is rolled out. Is there anything that you feel is just definitely missing from these recommendations or the gaps that they've been identified? We definitely want to know that and provide that feedback to the department as you all see it. Are there any major red flags in anything that we discussed? In some of the employment proposals, there is language about phasing out the subminimum wage. We obviously know there is federal legislation going on around that right now. I feel like that is a red flag to have in our state rules around developing these day array services. But again, very curious and wanting to know what everyone's thoughts are on not only that piece, but really if there's anything else that has jumped out to them as a major concern or a red flag with this implementation and any of these proposals as they've been presented. And then that proposal for supporting those with more complex support needs. Are there any other ideas around that? Are you doing anything that the department should know about that could be incorporated into their rules that would help you? Are there any other possibilities to bring in additional funding or additional resources for serving folks with more complex support needs? And how do you feel about the idea of being able to combo with state plan services to provide those additional therapeutic supports? Those are kind of the questions as I see them, but really looking for any and all feedback from the membership as soon as possible on this blueprint work, and really looking forward to seeing what you all have to say about it. And we will continue to advocate on your behalf as this process moves ahead. So I want to thank you for spending time with me talking through these blueprint proposals and recommendations and the implementation timeline. I am really, really looking for feedback from you all. So please, if you have any questions about anything I've presented here or any feedback for me, please send it to smarks@opra.org. Or you can feel free to call or text or whatever you'd like to do, 614-943-0975. Again, I thank you all for your time and sticking with me through all of these blueprint proposals, and are really looking forward to your feedback on all of these pieces. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.